Now let's talk about some of the other IP addresses that really don't fall into the category of A, B, and C. Now, IP addresses can be one of three different types. They can be public, which is what our A, B, and C classes are. Public meaning they can be assigned to computers or devices that will be used in a public environment, meaning other people need to be able to see these and work with them, really out on the public internet. It's a great way to think of that. Then there's private, which means just that, private, not on public networks. And then there's APIPA, and that stands for Automatic Private IP Addressing. Now you want to make sure you understand the significance of these, and let's just take a look at some examples. Public IP addresses. By default or by rule, all IP addresses are public unless those addresses are part of a range that has been designated as private or special use. A good example of special use would be 127.0.0.1. That is a loopback address. If I ping that address, or if I try to reach that address, it's just going to bounce the signal around in my computer and send it right back. It's like calling home. You get a busy signal, okay? And then there are some other ones out there. A private IP address is IP addresses that have been set aside saying, okay, these addresses shouldn't be routed out on a public network, and a lot of the routers won't pick them up and deal with them. But there's three of these ranges in the IP version 4 space. The first one is from 10.0.0.0 through 10.255.255.255. Now there are 16,777,216 private addresses in the 10.0 to 10.255 range. And so you'll probably see those. And then there's 172.16.0.0 through 172.31.255.255. Notice a little over 1 million of those addresses. And then the one that you've probably seen the most, 192.168.0 through 192.168.255.255, and there are 65,536 of these addresses. Now these are the ones that if you go out and buy a router, most of the time you plug it up, the router automatically is working in the 192.168.0 network environment. These are private addresses. You may have a public IP address for your internet service coming into your house, but everything on the inside of your router, all of your machines on the side of the router that's private, is going to have a 192.168.0 something address, unless you go in there and change that, okay? So that's private address ranges. Make sure you know what these three private address ranges are, so that if you see an IP address on the exam, you can say, whoa, 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 that's a private IP address, okay? Then there's the APIPA address. Now, this was automatic private IP addressing. This is a special purpose address that's in the private address range, and notice it's always a 169.254 type address, and it can go from 0.1 to 254.255.254. Now, here's the deal with the APIPA address. It always uses a default network mask of 255.255.0.0, and this is a DHCP failover mechanisms for local networks. Let's say you have a DHCP server. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. We'll get to it later. But for now, it is a device on the network that will automatically configure our IP address and make everything work. Well, what if this fails? Well, your computer will automatically give itself a 169.254 address. That way, if you can just put a bunch of computers on a network together, never mention IP, turn them all on, they'll automatically get 169.254 addresses, and they can communicate. We can use this in troubleshooting if I have a person on the network who can't communicate with anybody, can't see any network resources, and I go look, I use ipconfig at a command prompt, and I look at their IP address and it's 169.254, I immediately know, hey, wait a minute, they didn't get a valid address from the DHCP server, so something's either wrong with the DHCP server, or my machine's not getting out on the network correctly. Something's going on, okay? Now this API-PA address was really a feature of Microsoft Windows. It's enabled by default in Windows, and it's on Windows machines that you'll generally see these. And the only way you won't see these addresses is if you go in on the Windows machine and disable this service in the registry. So that's just a little rundown on public, private, and API-PA addresses. Guarantee you will see some form of question on the A+ exam about this API-PA address of 169.254. Watch for that. That's telling you, hey, my computer gave itself an IP address because it didn't have a static address, and it went looking for a DHCP server and didn't find one or didn't get an address from one. And that is telling you need to do a little bit of investigation on your network. So that's a quick rundown on public, private, and API-PA.